Good afternoon and welcome to today's Football League podcast with me, Joe Cummings. Today I'm joined with my good friend and former colleague Richard Joyce, who is the Media Communications Manager at Cheltenham. That's obviously before football was halted. Firstly, Joycey, how are you these days?
Yeah, very well, thanks, Joe.
Good.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Good. Just cracking on with all the rest of the work I got to do and doing some fun things like this. And obviously a big thanks to you for helping sort out my interviews with Duff and Milton. What's it been like to work with those guys in the year and a half that they've been at the club?
It's been good. I think you've got, obviously, both of them have got very close affinities with the football club because they've been there either a long time or they've been there before and come back. And so they both know the football club really well and what it's all about. And, obviously in Michael's case, it's his first permanent job as a manager. So that's been interesting to be a part of. And then with someone like Russ, he's been at Cheltenham a long, long time, both as a player and also as a youth coach, and then now as a first team sort of coach and then assistant manager. So it's been really interesting working with both of them. They're both good guys, and I think if you look at how well the team's done this season, that probably reflects their sort of knowledge of the game and the sort of understanding of the division, which is what you need.
Yeah, and behind the scenes, they like a laugh and a joke. Are you usually at the butt of those jokes, or do you like giving it back to them as well?
Sometimes the better those jokes. I think partly because I obviously used to be at Forest Green, so that's always a useful joke to take the mick out of. But all sorts of people are at the butt of the joke. So sometimes I am, sometimes other people are as well. So sometimes I get away with it.
Yeah. And I've spoken to Milton as well, who played with Duff, obviously under Cottrell in the glory days, as they rose from the Southern Premier to League One. What is their relationship like as a pairing?
Yeah, it's good. I think they obviously, they knew each other as players, and then now as coaches, it's amazing really when you think of the history of it, because it's not just them. Also, you got people like Steve Book as well, the goalkeeper coach. The fact that they all played together in those teams back in the late 90s into the early 2000s. And obviously Michael went off to Burnley to end up playing Premier League football a few times, and that link has been there for a long time. So here they are all the way in initially what would have been sort of late 2018, meeting up again to become a management team together at Cheltenham.
Yeah, and
they obviously know each other very well, and I think that probably helps a huge amount. They were former teammates, and now they're teammates again, basically, but as a management team.
And they've done a real good job. Obviously, we've seen in the last 2 years how they've gone from relegation battlers, notably being 2-0 down to Macclesfield in that big game at the start of last year, to all of a sudden they've got a great chance of going up, obviously, albeit when football comes back. It would be very harsh now to null and void the season, especially the turnaround that the Duffs almost managed.
Yeah, that's right. I think there would be 10 games for us to go. I think 9 for most other teams in League Two. So, at least most of the season has been played. No one could have ever predicted what was happening right now, and it's obviously there's more things more important than football, but from a football perspective, it has frustrated a lot of things. Not just the thought of the actual season being completed, but also obviously the future of football and lower level football and all that, the risks that are associated with that, with the costs and stuff that clubs are going to be missing out on. But we'd love for the season to come to some sort of positive conclusion, because of course a huge amount of work goes into every football season for every team, but particularly when you've done really well and you're up right at the top and you've got a good chance of going up. So there was a few games left to go. I think we're still waiting to hear what the EFL are planning to do. There's been various meetings, and today, in fact, I think there's another meeting which could be quite a key one. But we're still patiently waiting to see what could maybe happen, and maybe, hopefully, it's going to be some sort of positive news for Cheltenham.
Patiently waiting, I see. And obviously, you spoke of that good work. Obviously, that Duff's done. It's been a long season. And do you think Cheltenham have got a good chance of promotion once we do resume League Two?
I think it's from a momentum point of view, it's pretty hard to sort of know really, because of the fact that for Cheltenham we're in fantastic form going into the lockdown basically, or when football stopped. Obviously it's been a long wait now. Players haven't trained. Players would have to train again to get back up to match sharpness and stuff if the season was to resume. I reckon that's pretty doubtful it resuming at the minute. But if it was to, it'd be almost like the first day of the season again, in the sense that yes, it's going to be almost a mini season of 9 or 10 games. But if it does come down to the things they've been talking about, whether that's points per game, then yes, at the moment for Cheltenham that weighs very positively in the club's favour if some of the mathematics that have been done around it are correct. But there's all sorts of other things being talked about. So at least we're in a good position in terms of being in the playoff places. If we were 7th or 8th, you'd be thinking, well, we're not really in a place to be a part of this all. Whereas being 5th and having a game in hand and a very good points per game record means that we are in a good place over any potential decision to promote one of the teams outside the automatic promotion places.
Yeah, and obviously it's a remarkable rise. Obviously the position Duff has got Cheltenham in such a short period of time. What do you think the main changes are behind the scenes that he managed to get everyone singing on the same hymn sheet?
I think he changed. It's always a big one, but it's probably not spoken about anywhere near as much now because everyone's so used to it. But he changed the formation to 3-5-2 about 2 or 3 months after he arrived at the club, and it suited the players he had at the time on contracts. And so what he's done is he's literally taken the players it suited, added even more players to it in last summer in the transfer window to sort of boost the team even more. Of course, added again even in January this year to do that. And what that's done is it's basically just strengthened what was already a really good sort of platform and foundation even more so. So he's got the balance of recruitment. He's done that correctly, brought in some really good players when he hasn't actually got a huge amount of money to spend, of course, as well. But also just tactically, that the players say to you, and it sounds ridiculous when they say it to you, but we all know our jobs. And, that's because it's such a well-drilled setup with the 3-5-2, both in and out of possession. There are some teams in League Two who will play off the cuff and hope for sort of individuals or a bit of freedom to work their way. But there's a bit of inconsistency and reliability, I think, with that. Whereas when you've got a very solid platform like Cheltenham do in that 3-5-2 formation, you kind of know what's going to happen in different situations, and the players know that really well because they train in it every day and, of course, play in it every Saturday.
And Duff spoke, when I spoke to him, about the humility and the togetherness and the fact that, I think he quoted, we haven't got the superstars of League Two. So how do you think, from a mental and psychological point of view, he's managed to turn the team around to get them in a frame of mind where they go into every game wanting to win?
Yeah, I know he's really big on playing the underdog tag, which I suppose is a useful thing with Cheltenham because, like I said, Cheltenham have got one of the smaller budgets in League Two. Club size, not small, but definitely not the size of some clubs like your Bradfords and your Plymouths and stuff, which are some of the teams that we're currently fighting with at the top end of the table. So I think you can kind of play on that sort of card really well. Also, there's a lot of players in that team who have sort of been let go by other clubs who maybe deemed them, not quite up to what they needed, who have come to Cheltenham and performed to the levels that, they can. So I think it kind of is a nice way of approaching it. Of course, if Cheltenham could get into League One next season, then I think that sort of almost team belief and almost team talk from Michael Duff becomes even stronger because of the fact that you're going to be playing against some significantly bigger clubs in League One, if that does happen.
And you can tell this means a lot to Duff because of the journey he went on as a player, taking them from the Southern Premier League to the League One, the highest they'd ever been. Like you said, Duff would go on to play in the Premier League, and for subsequent years after, Cheltenham toyed with the idea of being in League One. They had a couple of seasons, but for the large part, since Duff left, we've been stuck in League Two, even dropping into the conference. For Duff personally, how much would this mean to be able to take them back to League One?
Yeah, I think it'd be big because he's very well remembered by the fans. I think he's the amount of promotions he's had. I think 1, 2, 3, 4 with Cheltenham. I think also won the FA Trophy at Wembley in 1998. Obviously, then got sold on to a high level club. So he's coming through the youth system and ended up being the best product basically Cheltenham Town have ever produced and played at the highest level probably in the whole history of the club. So to then do that as a manager, to repeat that, the same success he had as a player would be amazing really for him. And also on a more selfish level for him, it would be very good. It's his first managerial job. It's crucial you get your first managerial job right because football's so judgmental, especially for managers. The sort of the rate in which they last in the game. So for him to have a successful first job would be huge in the sense that it will make other clubs sit up and take notice. So maybe becoming a manager in the Championship or one day even in the Premier League would be an easier process if you have success with Cheltenham now than if you were to struggle at the bottom end of League Two and become just one of many managers who gets left on the scrap heap.
Yeah, and obviously it would mean a lot for him personally. I think he does really love the area. He's married a Cheltenham girl. His brother lives in Gloucester. Despite being an Irishman, I think Cheltenham really is his home. And this season, obviously, we've been to all the home games and you to most of the away games too. It has been a really enjoyable season so far. It's not just been about results. I think Duff said himself he's actually enjoyed watching the team play. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. I think, again, it comes back to that sort of putting the spine down and the foundations of the team. You kind of know and you're kind of guaranteed that's how they're going to set up in games. And then you kind of just go, right, okay, now we know that's how we like to approach games. Go and prove you're good players and you can do it. And, defensively, the team has been fantastic this year. They've only conceded 27 goals in League Two, which is an incredible amount. I think the next lowest team have conceded 37. So that's 10 additional goals. But the next lowest team have conceded. So when you've got a defence that are providing that much protection, it just lets all the midfielders and the attackers just go and do the rest of the jobs. And there hasn't been any real sort of leading goal scorer who's gone and scored 20 goals or 15 goals. It's kind of been more a case of sharing the goals amongst 4 or 5 players, below the number of 10, I think. But the fact that you're relying on several people to score the goals as opposed to just one person, like maybe a couple of years ago when Mo Issa was the man who scored 25 goals and single-handedly made sure that Cheltenham had a steady season. It's not just relying on one man; it's several players. So overall, everyone in the team has to contribute in this Cheltenham team. It's not just individuals who are saving the day type thing.
Yeah, and it's been a real team effort. And also, I think Cheltenham have the fewest defeats in the league. And you look at their form at home. I think they went 17 league matches unbeaten, which the Johnny Rocks really has become a fortress. That home form is always so important. But last season, the problem they had was, and a lot of teams do have it in the Football League, is winning away games. In any level of football, winning away games is just, it's a mystery. Why is it so hard? But this season, some highlights, beating Plymouth away 2-0. I think that was when the dream started to become a reality, really, in terms of a promotion push.
Yeah, that's right. Last season, even though our home form was fantastic, it was the away form that was really, a real problem. And I think it became a belief thing because, like you mentioned, the Plymouth game back in September, we had 3 games in a week. I think we played Salford away and got our first away win for months. And it was a really good performance, and there was a good following that day, and it was just continued what was a good start to the season. Then I think we beat Bradford, maybe on a Tuesday night. And then we played Plymouth away on the Saturday, big crowd, I think 8,000-9,000 people there. They were right up there. They're obviously probably going to get promoted to League One, as they should do, really. And then we did them 2-0 with a really good performance. And suddenly 2 really good away performances, 2 away victories in the space of 7 days. And it was kind of suddenly that belief that hadn't been there for playing away from home was there. And since then we've had some fantastic away results. Beating Mansfield 3-0 away from home was another one that really sticks out in the memory. They were obviously in the playoffs last season, and they've got a good team. So there have been some very good results away from home, and it's nice to go away from home knowing that you've got a sniff of getting a result, and you're not just having to rely on your home form.
Because it's really important, isn't it, with away fans, the amount of money they spend on not just the tickets but the travel, potentially beer involved, who knows, and also it's a big commitment going that far. It's really important to get the fans on side, and not just that at home because the results been so good. We've also seen the introduction of the 1887 Red Army. On the large part, it's been really successful. Obviously, a bit of trouble in the Port Vale ties. How important do you think that 87 Red Army has been in sort of driving the players on? Because, like I said, there's been some really good football this season, but when they've had to grind out results, Cheltenham have managed to do it with a lot of comeback wins. How important do you think it is, the singing section this season? What impact has it had on the team, performance-wise?
Yeah, it's been really good. I think the players love it, the management love it, and I think the board of directors really like it as well. It's just changed the atmosphere, at Whaddon Road, because otherwise it can sometimes be a little bit flat, and the noise from the speedy skip stand, unfortunately the acoustics isn't great in there, so even if they do make noise, it doesn't really travel that far, whereas in the Colin Farmer stand in that section, it does travel far, and it's made for a really good atmosphere. I think the players probably love scoring down that end because they can celebrate in front of all the fans that end, and it has helped massively because, I think players would always tell you that one thing it's like doing is playing in front of empty stadiums. They'd rather play in a small stadium that's nice and tight, full of supporters making noise, and at Cheltenham, it's quite a nice tight knit ground, and with the noise being made by the Red Army this season, it's been massive in terms of helping that atmosphere, and I think it's got a lot of praise from visiting supporters who've come to the stadium during the season as well.
Yeah, I think that's quite a nice area to leave it on. Actually, it's been, like you said, a successful season, lots of changes in the last year, and with Bundesliga returning on the weekend, who knows what the future holds? But it's been really nice having you on the show, Joyce. Thanks for joining me.
Nice one. Thanks, Joe.
Cheers, mate.
Thank you.